Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
Most of us have used the term thinking outside of the box at some point in time in our lives. One thing that I like to think about is thinking outside of the kitchen, and there's a reason why. There are so many wonderful things that we have in our food on a regular basis. It can be so helpful for our overall health. So we have to think about some of the common nutrients that we're exposed to. So we think about things like onions and garlic, for example. And the garlic is what I predominantly want to focus in on today's episode. And there is a reason why, because we know that garlic not only has many well-studied cardiovascular benefits to it, but it goes well beyond that. And I want to talk all about the many different benefits of garlic, aged garlic in particular. So when we think about supplementation, we want to make sure that the form of garlic that we are using is the aged garlic type. So I am Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, and let's get right to it. Let's talk about garlic. What is garlic? Well, most of us know garlic, and it definitely has a very strong and familiar scent to it. Most people know if someone has had a good amount of garlic in a meal. Or you walk into your house and if someone is preparing a meal with a lot of garlic, it just has a very profound smell to it. And we know that garlic itself, it's a perennial that belongs actually to the onion family. And the flavors that come from the garlic are very, very powerful, which is why when you're cooking with garlic, usually a little bit goes a long way. And there are many different types of garlic. Most of us just think of, the traditional garlic that we utilize, which is the hardneck garlic. And that's the original style of garlic when we think about cooking. And what we have to recognize is that all of the powerful constituents that are found within the garlic is what really yields all of these superior health benefits. We look at the history of garlic, and we know garlic has been around for thousands of years, and it originated over in South Central Asia and areas within China. Northern Afghanistan is kind of known as like that garlic crescent, as they call it. But we also know that many thousands of years ago, that probably nomads likely brought garlic to the Mediterranean. And since I am such a fanatic when it comes to adhering to a Mediterranean style diet, we know that garlic plays a really prominent role in the foods in terms of the preparation of that Mediterranean style. And so most of us associate garlic with the Mediterranean. And that's a fine thing to do. But we also have to recognize the way garlic through history has been studied. So going outside of just that food industry and the culinary industry and the way that garlic can enhance the flavors of certain foods and these dishes that are renowned throughout the world that use garlic. But we have to look at the chemicals, these constituents that are in that. And we know that allicin is a very powerful chemical constituent that is derived from the garlic itself. Now, what's really quite interesting is that it is that allicin that produces that very powerful and unique scent. So we know that there's a high sulfur compounds within garlic. And this is kind of what's responsible for its scent and its taste and all of those beneficial effects. And it's been studied across the spectrum when it comes to health. Initially, a lot of folks would look at garlic in terms of its cardiovascular benefits. And certainly we know that there are many of those that definitely exist in terms of its broad cardioprotective effects. And to such a degree that there was a really important study, I would say, that came out about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was published in the Journal of Nutrition. And this was done via the UCLA Medical Center, where they were showing the impact of aged garlic extracts. So we're talking supplementation now. We're not just talking about garlic used in cooking. So now we're talking about taking those really powerful active constituents and putting them into a capsulated form. So you're getting a major power punch of those constituents. So in this study, they were able to show that aged garlic could reduce dangerous plaque buildup within the arteries, which is like, wow, okay, this is a really great thing. We have already seen its benefits when it comes to helping to support and maintain healthy blood pressure. But to see that it could actually reduce dangerous plaque buildup in arteries, I think this is something that all doctors, I mean, you would think every cardiologist in this country would be telling their patients, hey, maybe you need to be taking some aged garlic capsules every day as part of your routine. And so what they had done at UCLA is they completed these 4 different randomized studies. And through this, they were looking at the progression of atherosclerosis and heart disease, and then looking at the introduction of aged garlic and seeing how it had this ability to actually reverse those different stages of heart disease. So I think that this is just one of those small little blurpits of what we already know about garlic. We have seen studies where they assess the C-reactive protein. We know that that's looking for levels for chronic inflammation. And we have seen this in terms of the power of aged garlic. We have seen how beneficial, even when we talk about cholesterol, for maintaining healthy cholesterol levels, we have seen the benefit that goes along with incorporating aged garlic into a routine. But there are so many different studies that are out in the last probably 4 to 5 years that are really just remarkable. And there was one that was published in 2019 in the Experimental Biology Journal talking about how garlic could reduce aging related memory problems. So, well, hey, that's a good thing, right? So we already know the cardiovascular benefits, but now we're also talking about the brain. And in this particular study that was conducted out of the University of Louisville, they were looking at that sulfide compound within that allicin, so within the garlic itself. And what the interesting finding within this study was the correlation between the gut microbiome. So remember, healthy gut, healthy mind. And so they were able to see how the garlic itself helped to maintain that healthy gut microbiome, those microorganisms that are in the intestines that are there to keep us healthy, but not only to keep us healthy, but to maintain that proper communication between the gut and the brain. And we know that the gut contains trillions of these different microorganisms. And so they were able to show just how the garlic itself could work in a way to enhance that communication between the two. And in doing that, they were able to see, hey, we have shown an improvement in memory, in when we think about cognitive decline and cognitive disorders. And we can say to ourselves, so by adding in aged garlic, this could help to balance out the microbial environment, which can then help to support the intercommunication between the gut and the brain. Yes, that is what they were able to show. I mean, certainly they did a real cool study over in Scotland quite a few years ago, looking at garlic extract and how that can actually help patients who have cystic fibrosis in terms of being able to fight off infections. So we're talking about the immune system once again. So we have to look at that gut microbiome. And what they found was that there is a chemical found in garlic that can kill the bacteria that causes these life-threatening lung infections in people who have cystic fibrosis. So what is that compound? It is the allicin. Once again, so we go back to that power constituent derived from the garlic. And this was the first study, this one over in Scotland, to show that the allicin itself, just the allicin alone that's extracted out of the garlic, could be an effective treatment against a group of all of these different infectious bacteria. And when we think about bacteria and the really horrible things that bacteria can do to us, especially when you take someone who has cystic fibrosis. So we already have this reduction in terms of lung function. And then if you take a bacteria that targets the respiratory airways, then we're really kind of up against it. And the treatment for those patients becomes much more complicated because a lot of these bacteria have become resistant to the different antimicrobial therapies. So with this, the researchers in Scotland found that the allicin from the garlic, which could just be extracted out from the raw garlic itself, actually inhibited the growth of bacteria. And not only did it inhibit the growth, it actually had bactericidal properties to it, meaning it could actually kill that bacteria. And so this team over in Scotland, they looked at this and they published this in the journal called PLOS One, which is a really large scientific journal showing the potential use for aged garlic extract when it comes to a whole plethora of different things, including targeting bacterial infections in very vulnerable populations such as those who have cystic fibrosis. Now, we know that there was, right around that same time, there were some studies done over in Asia looking at that antimicrobial resistance in UTIs. We know that that's very common. So if you have people, usually females, who have recurrent urinary tract infections that become resistant to the antimicrobial or the antibiotic treatments, then it becomes a really problematic issue because it's like you go into the doctor and you keep getting these UTIs and every single antibiotic that they give you is not working because that bacteria is like, your pathogenic bacteria is like, yeah, you can't affect me. So in this study done in Asia, they were looking once again at the power of allicin and how the garlic extract may be an effective weapon, as they called it, an effective weapon against multi-drug resistant strains that are associated with UTIs. So just such a cool and unique thing is garlic. And that's why I like to talk about it in the setting of thinking outside of the kitchen. In the Journal of Frontiers in Nutrition, they talked about the effect of aged garlic extract on that gut microbiome, on inflammation, on different cardiovascular markers in hypertension. So we kind of go back to that beginning stage where we say, well, we know that garlic has been shown for many different studies in terms of being beneficial for all these broad cardioprotective effects, in terms of regulating blood pressure, in terms of targeting cholesterol, in terms of the issues with inflammation, including C-reactive protein. But they have also seen how the garlic extract could actually significantly lower other markers that are known for inflammation, such as TNF-alpha, IL-6. So really some powerful research out there from something that is so simple and something that we all know and we all recognize Now, maybe it's not your favorite thing. Maybe you're not a fan of garlic and you say, I don't like to have garlic because then I feel like I have garlic breath all day, or for whatever reason, you're just not a fan of garlic. That's fine. But you still want to make sure that you are exposing your body to the benefits, those many different benefits that I just listed of the garlic. So how do you achieve that? By taking aged garlic extract on a daily basis. So you can go to our website, invitehealth.com, and you will see our aged garlic extract, this very potent form of the garlic, yielding you the power of that allicin. And we know that it has been beneficial, not just for the heart, but also now for the brain, for the urinary tract, for even metabolic syndrome. We talk about blood glucose regulation and triglycerides, all of the ways in which the power of garlic has been shown to be incredibly impressive. So that is all that I have for you for today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Invite Health podcast. Remember, you can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. Now, do make sure that you subscribe and leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health, and we will see you next time for another episode of the Invite Health podcast.